Bend, don't break. This is a Delta Police podcast.
Hear more about how police officers strengthen their resiliency through the power of story.
Well, good day, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Bend, Don't Break. And I'm super excited to be able to get to this episode. And I have been speaking with Courtney, who's here with us here today since August of 2023. And in Bend, Don't Break, as you know, we've been doing podcasts for the entire time we've been in existence. And today is a little bit different because we're going to also do video on this particular podcast as well. So it'll be on our YouTube channel. So just Bend Don't Break or go to DPD and go to our YouTube channel. You'll be able to see it. But there's some important clips here that we want you to be able to see that will actually tell the story probably far better than I can assist with the story or even explain it better than what Courtney will be able to do. But today I am with Courtney Luxen from the Calgary Police Service. And Courtney is a constable in Calgary. And welcome to Bend Don't Break.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's thrilled
to be here,
Courtney. Yeah, absolutely. And your story is one I think our audience will have be totally enthralled with. And tell me, first of all, a little bit about your police service.
Yeah, so I work for the Calgary Police Service in Calgary, Alberta. And I'd say it's a fairly decent size police service. I'm not exactly sure our exact numbers right now, but we're really progressive with our mental wellness in the organization, which is where I get to be now.
Yeah, it's amazing, right? Calgary is a large organization, and Chief Mark Neufeld, I'll do a shout out to him. Obviously, Mark and I worked together in the Edmonton Police Service, and I think we were partners at one time when we walked the beat. So I know your chief well.
Very cool.
Maybe there's some stories I can tell you after we're done this podcast as well. But in saying that, yeah, thrilled. And how long have you been with the Calgary Police Service?
So I joined in 2007. So it's been 17 years now, when I was 21 years old.
And you're from Calgary originally, are you?
I am, born and raised.
Great. And was that always a dream for you to be able to be a police officer?
Oddly enough, no. I always thought I was going to go into sports medicine, kinesiology of some sort. And then I was working at a high performance training gym, and I had seen this female officer training, and I just got talking with her and fell in love with the idea of becoming a cop. So I was 18 at that point.
Very cool. Were you athletic?
Very, yeah. All my life.
What kind of sports were you playing?
I played basketball. I like to say stand-up basketball because I also did a few years playing wheelchair basketball.
Wow.
So that was
into our story, right?
Pardon me?
Would that build into our story, the wheelchair basketball?
Well, I don't know if I would even fit a team anymore because of the how I played. I'm not sure if that would even work.
That's amazing. And what kind of areas were you working in Calgary? Where have you worked before?
So I worked in 4 District, is where I started out, which is our southeast, well known as Forest Lawn area. At the time, it was lots of very, very busy with lower income kind of people in crime, and it was just very busy. I worked patrol there in the car for a couple of years, and then I did 2 years on the mountain bikes, getting to ride around. And then from there, I went downtown to the 1 District, which is our downtown area, and I joined the Beats unit. So I was doing foot patrol there for about a year. And then I went into, I had 2 kids, and so I took myself off the street and I went into the domestic conflict unit, where I was a court liaison officer, and that's where I ended up getting sick.
So just before we get there, I want to do another quick shout out as well to the Calgary Police Service. I have had numerous people come on from Calgary, and I've always been impressed with the wellness program and the way that it manages. And I think we'll hear a little bit about that today as well. So congratulations to the Calgary Police Service Wellness Unit, I guess it would be called, or section. And always appreciate the opportunity for me to be able to hear some of the stories of your members. And you mentioned that you got sick at one point in time when you were working in one of the units. And tell me a little bit about what were some of the symptoms you were feeling.
This would have been when I was 12 years on. At this stage, I had 2 kids, and I was back working in the domestic conflict unit. I was at the courthouse. It was early spring of 2018, and my eyes kept blinking incessantly. I couldn't keep them open. It was almost like they were glued shut, and I had to use my hands to physically open my eyes. And it got to a point where we thought it was just like maybe allergies, but it got to the point and so incessant that I ended up going to an optometrist who was like, you have a little bit of dry eyes. And then I went to an ophthalmologist because you have to advocate. And I was like, no, something more is going on. And they, again, said, your eyes are a bit dry, but there's nothing else we can see. So we kind of just were like, maybe it's allergies. From there, that went on for a couple months, and my breathing began to get labored. And I was very worried about that, and I began to hyperventilate. But it was a very smoky summer. There was lots of wildfires. So again, I thought maybe it's just allergies. It's the two weren't kind of coinciding, or they were just coinciding, but nothing was coming out of it. And from there, I began to fumble. I went to get my kids, who were 5 and 3 at the time. I went to get them water, and I was bringing it over to them, but it would be spilling all over the place. I was fumbling. I couldn't actually grasp anything for any length of time, and without even any thought or anything, I would just be dropping it. So from there, I actually went to a doctor, and I was like, something's going on. I thought it was allergies. Something's definitely going on. And that was the first moment that somebody had said, you're dealing with a little bit of anxiety. And I got mad because I was like, well, no, I'm anxious because my eyes and my breathing, something is happening. And now I'm dropping things. So from there, I went back home. I didn't accept that I had any anxiety. And very quickly, my fumbling turned into a flail where my arms were going above my head and I couldn't control any movements. If you said, raise your left hand, I was raising my right hand. I was flailing. I was crashing into walls, and my husband would be behind me trying to have me walk just to protect me, and I would be bumping him and crashing into everything. So at that point, I went to the hospital because the doctor said I was just anxious. That's all it was. Went to the hospital, and they had said that, again, they did some tests. It was just anxiety. Sorry, that was before I started flailing. That was more with my breathing and fumbling. Then, so I had gone to the hospital. They said anxiety. Nope, they have to be wrong, as well as the other doctor. And I went back home. And then I started flailing very quickly. And at that point, I thought, well, maybe I've got Lyme disease. Like maybe this is a feature of that that's coming out. Nobody understood what was happening to me. So I took it upon myself. I called the San Francisco Lyme disease clinic, and I talked to somebody, and they were about to take me serious.
Now, Courtney, we're just looking at something here now. So I just want to jump in for a second, and we're seeing a video that you sent us. And tell me a little bit about this. And if anyone does have the opportunity to go to YouTube, I highly, highly encourage it, because you won't believe this.
Yeah, so this was part of my rehab program. After the fact that I had gone from the San Francisco Lyme clinic, I had gone to my family doctor, and he knows me really well. And so he ended up writing a really nice letter, because I looked like somebody who was had a really hard drug addiction for a long time, and I looked like somebody I would have judged. So he wrote me a really nice letter, and I went to the hospital, where they admitted me into the neurology unit for 7 days. And so from there, they tested me for everything, for the Lyme disease, for Parkinson's, for MS, heavy metals, basically anything that they could. My mom and my husband were Googling things, and my neurologist was like, okay, we'll test it, because nobody knew what was going on. So I was there for 7 days. They did CT scans and MRIs. And eventually what ended up happening was I was released with the diagnosis of exclusion, functional neurological disorder. So FND. That is when things kind of got more real, because now I was out and I was into my home life, and I was flopping and flailing on the ground into things. I was colliding. I couldn't control my body, like physically at all. I was flailing around. So at that stage, they said that I would be going into a physical rehab program. So these videos are from that rehab program that my husband and family took, because I was really having troubles acknowledging that I was getting any better. So the videos, and there's a progression, and it's 1 step forward, 6 steps back, over and over again. And between home life and then hospital life, where I was doing this rehab program, was very different experiences in how my body was responding.
So you're off work at this time too, right? So you've been off work
Yes.
for
So
about how long?
At this stage, I was off work for about a month and a half.
Yeah. So I just want to go through the progress. So it started with your eyes not being able to control your blinking and not being able to open your eyes, to some problems breathing, to some overall body control, right from everything from your hands and legs, and almost looking like you're on some significant high. Like sometimes, it's a person on fentanyl almost displays the same sort of signs anyways, visual signs. Would that be an accurate way to say it?
Very much. I was tweaking out, is what I look like.
Exactly. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yes. Wow. So you end up going to the hospital 7 days. They diagnose it as this neurological disorder, and then they start you on therapy.
Yes.
Okay. And the therapy, what kind of things were you doing at therapy?
So I had my neurologist, I had a neurophysiotherapist, an OT therapist, a speech therapist, because my speech, I could still talk. However, it was described that I was talking underwater. So it was very muffled sounding. And I had a dietitian, because I was tweaking out so much that I had lost 35 pounds. So I couldn't get the calories on at all.
And you had never been sick up until this point, had you?
No.
Like,
however, no, I had never been sick, no anxiety, no mental health conditions at all. A year prior to this sickness in 2018, I was diagnosed with lupus.
okay.
So
yes.
Now I do believe that there's probably a correlation within all of this.
Yes.
But I had been relatively healthy up until this point.
And how scared are you while this is going on, while not knowing what this is?
I was extremely scared. I was told that when I was given this diagnosis, that basically my brain had hijacked itself and my wires were all crossed. So there was but they could not explain why. They had no idea what caused it, or they believed I was going to get better, but they didn't know where I was at. And it seemed like I was a pretty extreme case of FND. So that was it was a whole bunch of unknowns that we were dealing with. So going into this rehab program was mainly just to try to get me to be able to function again in life. Not necessarily back to work or anything else. It was just to be able to regain function, be there for my kids, my husband, and life in general.
And these videos that we've been seeing here as they've been dispersed within show you flailing around, and that's during the rehab portion of your actual treatment.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
So that's in a hospital setting, very different than at home.
Right. And that same sort of those same sort of symptoms were displaying at home, if not worse, right?
They were, and they were a little bit worse, to the point where I was often on the ground with ice packs or hot packs on my arms and legs. I was sore, and I had open cuts on my elbows from flailing on my carpet. I actually lost hair during this portion as well, because I couldn't control anything, and I was constantly moving around. So at home, it was not a safe environment unless I was on the floor.
What is your family thinking at this point in time, and how is your husband managing or your partner managing?
They were terrified. My husband, he's my rock, and he did amazing. My kids were terrified, but pardon me?
Shout out to husband. Yeah, we get to thank you.
Yeah, exactly. Shout out.
Yeah.
And my kids they were 5 and 3, so they didn't know what was happening. It began to get to a point where they were definitely concerned. They just wanted their mom, but it was to the point where they weren't even coming to me when they needed something because they knew that I couldn't help them. So it was challenging all round. A lot of like our family, friends, our church community, work friends really stepped up here and helped with my husband. And my husband was working full time during this time as well. So it was a real challenge all round, but people were amazing and stepped up to help alleviate and take away the weight, and meals were brought, and so it really helped.
Amazing. So we're now about 2 months in, approximately 2 months in.
Mm-hmm.
You're in the hospital setting, getting some therapy. What are they telling you? What are they telling you for recovery?
At this stage, they didn't know, but what they did start to notice was that my body was responding to different things in different settings during this therapy process, that they realized something else was going on. So the psychologist that I was seeing at the time, she, and thank God, bless her, she sent me to a psychiatrist because she knew something else was going on. There had to be more reason. So I went to the psychiatrist, and I was diagnosed at that stage with complex post-traumatic stress disorder.
So PTSD or?
PTSD, yeah, CPTSD.
Okay, yes. Had you ever experienced a traumatic incident that you could remember?
I didn't think so. I mean, I was never the one who pulled the trigger. I was never the one who needed the help. I was the helper, and there was no way that I had any sort of anxiety. So at this point, I was filled with shame and the guilt. And I felt like I was taking something away from other people because I was needing all these resources now. But they were so focused on me. I thought my career was over. I thought just my life was over. There was no getting back. There was no anything. And the anger and just shame and guilt that I felt, because now I had been told I had anxiety and PTSD, but at this point. So
you would think that PTSD, we've never, or certainly my experience with it, you never see people display with the flailing that, the tweaking out that you're speaking of and that others can see on these videos.
No, and I always thought that somebody who got PTSD came back from the war, that
yes.
They were homicidal, suicidal,
depressed.
Exactly. I didn't think anything to do with me. And at that stage, the physical ailments were what was coming out. It wasn't anything. I mean, I was starting to get depressed, I guess, because of my body was doing its thing.
Yes.
But I had zero awareness to anything. But the super interesting part was once I started to actually accept that, okay, maybe I should start listening to doctors. They do know what they're talking about. Then my body actually started to respond differently and respond better, and eventually get to the point where I am here today and I'm able to do most physical things anymore.
It's amazing. So tell me, how long in for you before you had the PTSD diagnosis?
So it was 3 months at that point.
3 months. And then what happened in your treatment for PTSD?
So at that stage, I was then referred to a different psychologist. And I wasn't aware of this, but you really need to have somebody who is trauma aware, trauma trained, who can actually deal with some of the things that were coming up that I was recognizing, okay, well, maybe there was this incident happened. And then when I was thinking back, there was this incident, and it began, so it was never one incident. It was many incidences, and stuff from my personal life and work life was all kind of coming together and coming to a head. So once I started working with a new therapist, I was still doing the rehab program though. Then my body was responding differently, and it was very much one step forward, 6 steps back. But overall, it was moving forward more than it was backwards.
It's funny you say that. Often from the stories that I hear from people we talk to on Bend Don't Break, we hear about the cumulative trauma, right? And the analogy we always use here, so people are probably tired of hearing this, is the backpack that we have, that we carry, right? And it's filled with personal, it's filled with work, it's filled with all kinds of different experiences. And, although there's sometimes never one big rock, right? It's filled with all kinds of sand that has made it very, very heavy. And certainly it sounds like that was your case.
Very
How long were you
much.
in treatment for in relation to I guess it would be the psychologist, or were you at the psychiatrist now?
So the psychiatrist I saw for 3 visits, and then I had gone into the psychologist, who I'm still heavily rely on going to therapy in order to stay well. But I was in the rehab program at the hospital for 9 months. Yeah.
So we're approaching almost a year off work at this point in time.
Yes. Yeah.
Personal stress.
Personal stress was very high at this stage because
Yeah.
still yes, I was improving in some ways, but we didn't know what level of improvement I would truly get to.
Yes. How'd you keep hope?
I kept hope by, watching videos of my rehab and seeing that I was actually improving, but also just the generosity that was coming from family and friends, and they were giving me the positive outlook. My church family, I'm a person of faith, and that was an amazing thing, and there was blessings happening left, right, and center that I couldn't deny.
There's a lesson there for all of us, right? As we know people that are in our lives that may be experiencing different types of stress, anxiety, PTSD, whatever it might be, we have a role to play, right? And yesterday, I'm not sure when people will be listening to this, but yesterday was Bell Let's Talk Day for mental health awareness. And we spoke about it's not just an individual's problem, it's a community problem. And we are, an overused phrase again, all in this sort of together, and the ability for us to be able to have impact on other people that are experiencing mental health challenges is significant. So I'm sorry, I've cut you off. Please keep going in relation to your therapy, and you're now 9 months in.
No, so then I was 9 months in, and at that stage, I started just doing seeing my psychologist, which was extremely difficult at the beginning because I didn't think I had anything wrong with me mentally. So coming to the point where I was accepting that I was flailing on her floor in her office, and having to just really accept that she was there to help me, I was safe, because essentially my body was in such a fight or flight that it was thinking that I was in constant danger, which is why my body was responding with the flails in that sense.
Yeah, and for those of you listening, if you can imagine someone who couldn't even sit in a chair, that their body is moving uncontrollably in ways that they have to actually be on the ground in order for them to be safe. It's when I first saw the videos that Courtney shared with us, I couldn't believe what I was seeing, and I really do highly, as I mentioned before, encourage people to see the YouTube video on this. Tell me about the path to recovery.
The path to recovery has not been easy. It's a continual life balance that I have to do, because if I don't, when I get really, really stressed, my eyes are the first thing to go, and lights really affect my eyes. So when I'm stressed, my eyes will want to close. I will start to really stutter and sweat, and then just the body shakes kind of start to happen. And so if I don't take care of myself by doing regular therapy, I do a gratitude journal every night. And it's really interesting going back, looking at my gratitude journal when I was sick, and my husband actually had to write it out because I couldn't write. So it was really neat. It's really neat, just the perspective of then versus now. And it can be the smallest things of getting up and out of my bed and making my bed. Just one step in front of the other is how I just have to keep looking at all of this and keep going. Meditation has been huge. Learning breath work. I know as cops we're trained in breath work to a point in those stressful situations. But it's still in a stage of breathing to get something done. Whereas really breathing and focusing on the present moment is more what I have learned how to do and slow down in life, which I always used to be a busybody. I was a people pleaser. You wanted me to do anything, and I was always happy-go-lucky, but that was also a problem.
Absolutely. I'm going to skip a little bit ahead, but then we'll come back as well. So how long were you off work, and are you back with the Calgary Police Service in some form or function?
Yes. So I was off work for 21 months, and I am now currently back to work in a part-time capacity. My brain gets tired very easily, so I really have to those boundaries are really important. And I work in our organizational wellness unit in the peer support, which is absolutely phenomenal. I get to advocate for members around their mental health, and the importance of checking yourself way before it's too late and you're forced into it. Because had I maybe done that, I wouldn't have had this journey. But at the same time, I wasn't aware. So I do think things happen for a reason, and here we are. It sucks to get here, though.
Yeah, completely. And you would be an amazing role model in the wellness unit.
Oh, thank you.
To talk about your experience, I can only imagine how reassuring you're sharing your story and being able to share your progress it would be for others who are experiencing significant issues. So congratulations, and certainly congratulations to the Calgary Police Service for having you in that unit. What worked? What do you think helped you? I mean, this is going to be a lifelong journey for you. It's nothing that, when we talk about recovery, we talk about the ability for you to be able to manage it rather than to actually be cured, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think I'm going to be in constant recovery, never a cure. I've seen with stressful events, my body shuts down, and I don't flail like I did at this time. However, my legs get very jumpy. So there's a lot of boundaries that I just need to be aware. I need to name it to tame it. Like if I feel something's going to be happening, I have to acknowledge it, because if I don't, that's when I know I'm in trouble, and my body will respond. The body keeps the score.
Yeah, absolutely. The body does keep score, and I think I might go out and buy the domain "name it to tame it" there. You said that to me before, and I love that because it's so true, right? Once we name it, we can start to work on it and work through it. Is there anything in particular that you did that you think was super valuable that you would advise people to do early in their careers?
Yeah, I truly think every single person needs to see a therapist. I really do. None of us are alone. We all need to just go and have a check-in, see where you're at before it's too late. I can't do policing like I ever thought or hoped I would do policing. And that's my big comeback, is that take care of yourselves before it's too late. And then just physically staying in shape, keeping those outside interests that you had, keep those going, because outside at home life is really what matters the most.
Absolutely. I was had the pleasure of being able to attend an event here earlier this week, and they talked about what they called four pillars of wellness. And one was,
Hmm.
just as you said, exercise and physical health. The next was how you eat, and of course, your diet's very important. Sleeping, how important it is. But the one that caught me off guard was nature. They said that we should all spend, 2 hours a week, somehow 20-minute intervals out in nature to be able to help reduce the anxiety and stress that we have.
Hmm.
And those are the lessons I think I'm taking away from you as well. What have I missed asking you about here today?
The don't judge others. That's one of my biggest things. Um, don't judge others.
Yeah,
Sorry, my alarm.
yeah. You got a
Um,
tech team there, right? Yeah.
yes, I do. There we go. Don't judge others. It will get easier, and don't give up hope. Like, have hope in something. Doesn't matter what it is, but just know that there's going to be a better tomorrow, after maybe a few rough days. That's the biggest thing. Don't judge others. Don't compare yourself to others either, which is what I did 100% of the time, was comparing myself to others in regards to PTSD alone.
How'd you deal with the shame?
I found being vulnerable was healing. And because I was so physical, my shame kind of it was forced out of me, to be honest, because I was so physical. I had to get to appointments and people were going to see me. When I was going around the hospital, when I was going from my house to my car, my neighbors were amazing and so non-judgmental, which was really helpful. But really in the sharing, I found such healing, which has helped me with the shame, because I know I was an extreme case with functional neurological disorder, but I know that I'm not alone either. And FND can be something as simple as an eye twitch that won't go away. Sleep is super important. A headache, like, don't not pay attention to things, and don't not go to a doctor to get those checked out, but also recognize that stress does have a huge impact in our life. So kind of recognizing everything, sharing has been how I've dealt with shame.
One of the things we promote here is people's stories and the telling of stories. Did it help to actually tell your story to people and to tell it to others?
Yes, 100%. And I'm not great at telling my story in the sense,
Amazing today.
well, thank you. Video is so important in my journey because it's something that I don't even believe myself half the time. I'm like, oh, that wasn't really me. That was just a blip in time. So like it's hard to believe that it only took 21 months to kind of get back to work and get back to some normalcy. But yeah.
Well, I want to just sort of summarize as we bring us closer to the conclusion here today. Amazing. Always have hope. I heard that loud and
Mm-hmm.
clear, making sure that you have hope. A good group of supportive friends and family and colleagues is
Mm-hmm.
so critical, who continue to give you hope and help you build your resiliency. Having a
Mm-hmm.
therapist, and we hear it all the time, but many of us still don't have one. I would recommend any new police officers that are out there, they find their general practitioner, they find their dentist, they find their massage therapist, they find the physiotherapist, but they find their mental therapist as well, right? Get it all in order, have it all ready to go for when you start your journey in policing, because the career is worth it. The gratitude journal, I heard, being
Mm-hmm.
able to do a gratitude journal is so important. Another thing I heard that I thought was great is breathing. There's some great books out there. Breath is there, Wim Hof methods. There's all kinds of different breathing methods that are amazing,
Mm-hmm.
that I think are so valuable. And certainly we're taught some in policing, but there's many, many more through meditation as well, which
Mm-hmm.
are great. You mentioned you're a person of faith, which is important as well, right? That helps to build hope. And I think I need to be able to say, is there anything you want to leave our listeners and hopefully those that are viewing, to be able to leave them with today?
It will get better. Don't give up hope. That's my big takeaway.
Amazing. I can't do any better than that. I can't thank you enough, Courtney, for being able to share your story, being vulnerable, and being able to be humble enough to be able to come on Bend Don't Break. We greatly appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.